In this video, I will be responding to one of what I believe to be the worst types of video on the entirety of YouTube currently. And yes, it is one of the many video games are dead videos. And this one is extra special, let me show you why. The title of the video is The Rise and Fall of Arena Shooters and comes from the Act Man. So yeah, you likely already know who Act Man is, and if you've watched his content for some time, you know that he can have some good takes, but also an equal amount of downright bad ones. And this video is the latter, since he's constantly being disingenuous and full of double standards throughout the video. So without any further ado, since this is gonna be a long one, let's get into it.
But with every rise comes a fall.
A king has his reign, and then he dies. It's inevitable.
Ah yes, because games like Doom or Ultrakill are completely fucking dead, am I right? Not like Ultrakill just released an update not long ago and has a dedicated player base, not like classic Doom has a dedicated modding scene to this very day, and not like Doom Eternal released barely 3 years ago to overwhelming praise, but not according to this guy, I guess.
It's easy to forget the humble beginnings of FPS given how massive the game industry has become, but ever since man created gun, we have enjoyed shooting things, mostly alive things. Wolfenstein 3D is credited as being the first FPS title anybody really cared about, the first Avatar, if you will. But id Software didn't invent the concept. If you think about it, first-person shooters were merely an evolution of arcade and space shooters. Just a change in perspective. First-person shooters were merely an evolution of arcade and space shooters. Just a change in perspective.
Holy fucking shit, bro. That's the whole point. It's in the name. First-person shooters. The perspective is literally what defines the genre. Seriously, what the fuck even is that point?
And battle royales are merely the evolution of arena shooters, and now extraction BRs are the hot thing, and so on and so forth. About a week ago, I told a buddy of mine I was working on a video about the rise and fall of arena shooters, and he looked at me and he was like, I don't even know what those are. And I guess that's the point. That's how far out of relevance they've fallen.
So let me get this straight. Because his friend has never heard of arena shooters, this is somehow definitive proof that they're completely irrelevant? What even is this fucking video? Like, first of all, I have to call bullshit because unless your friend was born yesterday, there's no way in hell he hasn't heard about a high-profile game like Doom Eternal. This is considering he is at least somewhat interested in video games. And second, how is one person not knowing about the term arena shooters somehow prove that they are irrelevant? That's not a metric. Yeah, I sped that part up since it's just him explaining what arena shooters are, and since you clicked on this video you likely already know, and if not, well, shit, why are you on this video?
Some of the most revered games of all time are arena shooters, but lately it seems nobody really cares.
Ah yes, because you said so.
At least not about their multiplayer. Single player, yeah, Doom Eternal's kicked ass. But like, why does an 11-year-old game like CSGO continue to dominate Steam charts while a game fresh off the press like Quake Champions can barely scratch 4 digits?
Now we're just cherry picking. This is literally like comparing Call of Duty to Hollow Knight and saying, see guys, this is proof no one cares about Hollow Knight. Yeah, some games are high profile, others less so. Yet, I don't see how this proves one genre is irrelevant. I mean shit, by that logic, since mobile is the biggest video game platform, does that mean that playing on consoles or PC is dead? No, of course not. There's still demand for it, it has a place on the market, plus a lot of these arena shooters are made by smaller indie studios, which he will never mention once. Gee, I wonder why. Almost like he's being purposefully disingenuous.
Is there no mass market appeal for these so-called boomer shooters? Well, there still is. Is there no mass market appeal for these so-called boomer shooters? Well, there still is.
So you admit that there is still demand for it, which is literally definitive proof that the genre is in fact not that, and that your entire video is completely fucking irrelevant. But oh wait, there's gonna be a but, isn't there? You know, a but and this video do have one thing in common, they're both full of shit.
But as we'll see later on in this video, studios didn't quite figure out how to make these games appeal to that broader audience.
And there we go. They don't appeal to a broader audience because I said so. Again, he's completely ignoring Doom Eternal, which did in fact appeal to a broader audience. Not to mention, just because a game doesn't appeal to a quote broader audience, doesn't mean that the genre is dead, as long as there is demand and it is profitable. Also, define broader audience.
You might have played Doom 2016's multiplayer and thought, well, that felt antiquated. I feel like a 40-year-old man still clinging to his childhood playing this.
They ask you how you are, and you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine, but you just can't get into it because they would never understand.
And now, when we get to a high-profile game like Doom 2016, which was literally the game that rejuvenated the arena shooter genre, he's completely downplaying it. That tells you everything you need to know about him. He has a clear bias against arena shooters and is trying desperately to push this bullshit narrative. Which is also ironic because he's also the guy who said that if you like a video game he doesn't like, that you have Stockholm Syndrome. He's just that pathetic.
Perhaps you bought into the craze of Lawbreakers and later tried to hide your shame about that.
Just look at this shit. He admits the game is fun, but in the voiceover he's trying to shame people who played the game. He's such a fucking bitch.
Though developers have tried to revitalize the arena shooter genre, it seems none have really been successful.
Once again, because he said so.
My source is that I made it the fuck up.
And since Lawbreakers, it appears
no one has dared try.
You mean like Ultrakill, Doom Eternal, Dusk, Splitgate, even Halo Infinite, or any other game that came after 2017? You gotta love how much he's lying to his teeth. This is beyond pathetic right now.
But why? Well, that's the big question of the day. Before we tackle the fall, we have to take a trip back to witness the rise.
Yeah, how about no? I'm gonna skip past this little documentary segment since it proves absolutely nothing about the point that arena shooters are dead as a genre, and do not keep you here for an eternity. I mean, it is filled with misinformation and double standards, but I don't want to keep you here for 10 eternities. So yeah, saying it now for transparency.
2004 is the year that arena shooters started to fall, and the success of games like Halo 2, Call of Duty, and many others were only partially to blame.
Halo is literally an arena shooter. Sure, it's a more modernized take on it, but the concept is the same. Find weapons and power-ups on the ground and kill other players in the arena. So why is something like Doom 2016's multiplayer considered an arena shooter to you, while Halo isn't? Especially when you compare Doom 2016 to Halo 4. And there's even an extra layer of hypocrisy later on when he brings up Splitgate. Just wait until that happens.
For a time, the only way to access the internet and partake in online gaming was on PC. Xbox Live made it far easier and accessible without the need for an elaborate setup. A fourth grader in the 1990s is not going to be able to figure out how to set up a PC to play Doom online, but a fourth grade kid in 2004 has a much better chance of figuring out Xbox Live. Does that make sense? Arena shooters had been growing stubborn and stagnant. It had been 11 years since Doom released, and aside from many visual upgrades, there hadn't been much that changed.
And fast forward until today, and would you look at that? They have changed, they did adapt, and they were successful for doing so. Case in point, once more for the 10 millionth time, Doom Eternal.
Unable to settle on a direction for a sequel to Duke Nukem 3D, The Return of the King would come much too late to revive the genre, as Duke Nukem Forever would be trapped in development hell for over a decade. After its release, arena shooters might have been more dead than they were prior. Unreal Tournament had presence on Xbox Live, but wouldn't see similar levels of success on the 360, and it paled in comparison to the might of Halo 2 and Battlefront. Doom, not content with becoming irrelevant, and being unable to live up to a legacy of changing video games forever, instead opted to change directions completely. With Doom 3, id Software decided to pursue a more story-driven action horror kind of game.
Yeah, and it fucking sucked, what's your point?
Drifting from its roots, but still receiving critical acclaim. Well, how the turntables. Instead of Half-Life copying Doom, now it's the other way around. Not to mention Counter-Strike had seen a major update with CS Source, and Call of Duty was starting its run of success as World War II shooters were becoming more mainstream. Add on to this the rise of Battlefield, Battlefront, and other massive FPS titles, and the once mighty pie that arena shooters alone used to feast on was being consumed by many others.
You mean the other games managed to find their footing on the market? Wow bro, who could have seen that coming? This still doesn't prove shit. This just means that arena shooters became less mainstream, which doesn't mean they're irrelevant, as countless examples have proven, which I already listed multiple times.
Timesplitters, Future Perfect, Unreal Tournament, these may have been the last bastions for the genre on console, but after this, FPS titles had grown so far from their original iteration, and they weren't looking back. The release of COD 4 and Halo 3 pretty much sealed the fate of arena shooters and denied their future relevance in gaming.
Bruh, what the fuck? So he's basically making the argument that if you don't follow the biggest trends and the biggest genres that you cannot succeed on the market, which by itself is a flawed argument because by that logic, more tactical shooters like Call of Duty wouldn't succeed because they don't follow the trend of arena shooters. Let me make this clear. The only way a genre can objectively die is if there is no demand and no profits to be had, neither of which is true for arena shooters. But I wouldn't expect you to know that, since your massive ego clearly disallows it due to your bias.
If you weren't willing to adapt, you weren't going to succeed. They had slower movement, regenerating health, a 2-weapon inventory. These things were antithetical to the core of arena shooters. And as developers and players started to favor the trends set by Halo 3 and COD 4, the trends set by Quake, Unreal, and Doom were quickly being forgotten. Modern military and World War II shooters had firmly taken over. After this generation of consoles, new arena shooters were few and far between, and those that did release, well, I can't really think of any on the Xbox 360. I guess that's the point, huh?
So because no arena shooters released on the Xbox 360, this means they are completely dead? What the fuck even is this video?
FPS titles were now more about personal accomplishment, easily shared user-generated content, progression systems, social features, all things that most arena shooters failed to adapt to.
Literally fucking how? Let's take classic Doom for example. You can easily make user-generated content, which people do to this very day. You can have a social experience since it features both co-op and deathmatch. You can show off personal accomplishments due to its system of demo recording. The only thing missing is the progression system, which modern Doom titles like Doom 2016 and Eternal have. So there you go. So I ask, where is the problem?
What is the problem?
And cooperative shooters like Left 4 Dead, Destiny, and Borderlands started cropping up, and now FPS had such a mainstream appeal. Call of Duty and Halo were much more new user friendly. It changed the demographic substantially, as filthy casuals like myself now found ourselves screeching into the void on Xbox Live. And if me as a 7th grader could play Halo 3 on my console, why would I hop to PC to play an arena shooter?
To have fun? And I love how he's using accessibility as this big gotcha moment, when arena shooters literally became more accessible at the same time that games like Call of Duty 4 dropped, when everything moved away from LAN to online, to put it simply. What is stopping you from booting up an arena shooter and just pressing play? Because it's on PC?
FPS titles were a lot more social and team-oriented now. Halo had vehicles, Call of Duty had trash talk in lobbies, it had zombies. Battlefield had squads, Counter-Strike had teamwork and coordination. And arena shooters were still just zipping and zooming around without a care in the world. You guys want to go fast again? Are we still popular? I hope so.
Remember when just a few seconds ago he was praising Call of Duty for having trash talking, aka, you know, a simple fucking chat. Yet now he's bashing arena shooters even though they also had a fucking chat ever since Doom 1. So basically for no reason. It once again just goes on to prove that he has no arguments and is just pulling shit out of his ass in a desperate attempt to shit on this genre he doesn't like.
Some of you Call of Duty veterans may remember a playlist in COD 4 called Old School. Most of you will have no idea what I'm talking about because less than 2 years after release, the playlist was one of the least populated and consistently sat under 1,000 players. Old School mode was the arena shooter version of COD 4. But while Infinity Ward tried to pay homage, it was clear they were paying homage to a relic of the past. And this mode was abandoned in all future releases outside of COD 4 Remastered. So this begs the question, why didn't arena shooters stay relevant? It's not like just because there were other offerings that it made arena shooters objectively worse, right? So what happened? Horrible new player experience. Almost no one wants to fight FPS players with thousands of hours while they haven't played 5 hours yet. You can barely strafe without losing track of enemies while you get people rocket jumping and murdering you before you can even react.
Oh no, a game has a learning curve? What a crime. So I guess by this logic Souls games are completely dead because they have a learning curve. And notice how he's conveniently hiding the likes on this comment. It's almost like no one fucking agrees with it.
If you can point and shoot, you can play Insurgency. If you've played Rising Storm for an hour, you can kill someone who's played for 1,000. Arena shooters, however, not only is there more complexity in moment-to-moment gameplay, but there's also a lot more punishment for failure. In Rising Storm, one death is a drop in the bucket, and loadouts keep your character consistently powerful. But in Quake, that death not only grants the enemy a point, it also means they're given the upper hand next time.
This literally also applies to Halo. You lose your good guns that you picked up when you die. But wait, isn't Halo supposed to be this super accessible game that he was talking about earlier? It's almost like he's conveniently ignoring context to push a bullshit narrative. Also, what is wrong with more complexity in a video game? I mean shit, Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2019 added a lot more complexity to Call of Duty and went on to break sales records and become the best-selling Call of Duty game of all time. But if we go by this retarded logic, this wouldn't be possible because complexity bad. Just fuck off.
You become a mouse who must slay the cat. Lower player counts in these games result in frequent occasions of less experienced players being pummeled with no room to grow, which itself creates a self-fulfilling prophecy.
This applies to every multiplayer game in the world. New players get dunked on by more experienced ones, and the statement that they have no room to grow is a complete fucking lie. What is stopping a player from playing the game, practicing and getting better? Oh wait, absolutely fucking nothing. This is why you shouldn't take any of these armchair intellectuals on YouTube seriously. They have a tendency to talk straight out of their ass.
If you think about even the most hardcore fighting games, a casual can pick up a controller, mash buttons, and sometimes win.
I am trying so hard not to flip my desk right now. So why are they unable to do the same in arena shooters, you complete fucking Neanderthal? Where is the fucking difference? Bruh, seriously. He just completely dismantled the point that the other guy made, and he's just that fucking stupid to not realize it.
The skill gap in arena shooters is just too polarizing for casual players to enjoy without becoming a hardcore player themselves.
Just keep in mind that this is the same guy who argued against an easy mode in Elden Ring. So why is a casual player able to pick up Elden Ring, which has a much bigger learning curve, learn the game and still play casually, but the same doesn't apply for arena shooters? Oh wait, because he's being a hypocrite. Got it.
There's also far too many different subgenres of shooter to compete with nowadays that what worked in the 90s is looked at as antiquated. There's a stigma around it. Gamers want something more than bunny hopping around a static landscape for 10 minutes. They want to progress. They want a ranking system.
You mean one like in Doom 2016 or Doom Eternal? Oh yeah, also Source. Oh wait.
My source is that I made it the fuck up.
Things to unlock, a class to build, armor to customize. Hell, it wasn't even just the rise of other shooter genres. The rise of online gaming as a whole served to thwart the arena shooter monopoly.
It wasn't even a fucking monopoly. Other games in other genres could still do well. And they weren't thwarted either. They just became less mainstream. And even that is questionable because of games like Doom 2016 and Doom Eternal. Like, he keeps hammering this statement that arena shooters are dead, but he's yet to establish a single argument, a single source, or anything to prove it. Meanwhile, I have the fucking receipts.
But at the same time, you might be thinking, well, Act Man, companies like id Software and Valve were still doing really well. Why couldn't they revive arena shooters?
Because they did? Well, id did, but still. Let's hear what bullshit excuse he has for this.
Well, id Software and Valve sat in similar positions after the success of Doom 3 and Half-Life 2. They had too much dignity to milk their franchises and create anything less than a stellar, revolutionary new entry. And so both franchises went dormant for years. Epic Games was developing a new arena shooter back in 2014, but completely switched focus to work on this upcoming third-person shooter.
Damn bro, that was so funny I forgot to laugh. Also, congratulations, you said absolutely fucking nothing. They went dormant for some time. Wow, cool. And what did they do after that? Oh yeah, Doom 2016.
How long would Epic Games have been in business if they hadn't abandoned Unreal Tournament for Fortnite?
And this shows you that he has absolutely no clue what the fuck he's talking about. Epic Games could live in endless fortune from licensing their Unreal Engine alone. But no bro, they're only successful because of Fortnite, am I right? Seriously, tell me you're delusional without telling me you're delusional.
Duke Nukem Forever, like I said, had no fucking direction whatsoever. That was just a pure disaster. And Quake 3 was a big hit, but it took like 9 years for a sequel to come out. And by that point, Halo 2 and Xbox Live were blasting off into space. And the next Half-Life game would be a VR title released 500 million years after Half-Life 2. But what about Doom 2016? That had an arena shooter multiplayer, and you're right, it was okay, but it also like really sucked ass. Like playing as demons in multiplayer and killing other players, that's what was cool about Doom 2016's multiplayer, and almost everything else kind of sucked ass. Especially all these, unforgivable dances.
I like how he's just parroting about how the multiplayer sucks ass, but is yet to provide a single argument for it except for dances. That's number one. And number two is completely ignoring the single player, which, newsflash dipshit, people who play arena shooters play it mostly for the single player.
The multiplayer of Doom 2016 felt like it was checking a box, as 98% of the effort went towards the single player. So all the franchises and studios that had pioneered arena shooters were either fucking up or doing something completely different.
You heard it here, guys. Doom 2016 is a fuck up according to the Act Man. Never mind the fact that he has a review on his channel where he's completely sucking it off. But nope, now when it's convenient he's gonna flip-flop in typical Act Man fashion.
Bethesda and id Software did revive Doom, but as an experience of being an ultra badass blasting demons. And with its sequel Eternal, they ditched the entire concept of arena multiplayer entirely in favor of making this one mode that I played 3 times and never touched again.
First of all, that is literally arena multiplayer. Second, yeah, because most people play these games for the single player. It's what arena shooters are known for. Single player. Shit, even in classic Doom, the multiplayer was a complete afterthought. I still find it fun, don't get me wrong, but you can tell that deathmatch specifically wasn't in mind when the maps were made.
So if Doom couldn't revitalize the arena shooter genre, who could? Nobody. Certainly not fucking lawbreakers. If you check the player count of the arena shooter genre on Steam, it's barely a fraction of what CSGO pulls in, and player count alone doesn't matter. You can still play these games and they are still very much alive.
Which proves yet again that this video is completely fucking pointless. If they are not dead, why are you trying to push the narrative that they are, other than you being absolutely pathetic?
But they're not nearly as important or relevant.
Yet they still are relevant, which proves that they are in fact not dead, so your argument is fundamentally flawed. Also, you claim they aren't important, but you disregard Doom 2016 yet again, which is pretty damn important for pushing them back into the mainstream.
Splitgate might be the best example of a comeback, but that comeback was short-lived and its player base has evaporated since. Though the studio is working on a sequel, the reason Splitgate even saw this level of success as a pure arena shooter was due to its incredible Portal gimmick.
Hey guys, remember when he said Halo wasn't an arena shooter? Well, now he is completely flip-flopping and claiming that Splitgate is. And why? What makes Splitgate an arena shooter but not Halo? The portals? But last I checked, portals from the Portal games weren't a defining trait of arena shooters. So yeah, he's being a complete hypocrite yet again.
And movement and aiming was much more accessible to newcomers.
And here we have it again. So he's saying that because of these portals that movement and aiming were more accessible, while in reality, the portals make movement and aiming much more complex and skillful, which means they take longer to learn and master. But wait, wasn't that a bad thing earlier? But of course, now the players are allowed to learn how to play the game when it fits his narrative. This guy is so fucking disingenuous.
This was adapting to trends.
What fucking trends? I'm not even gonna pretend to understand this complete brain fart statement.
It seems the best way of bringing back arena shooters was through fun, easy to understand movement tech like grappling hooks. And what do you know? This feature has been universally praised and beloved in Doom Eternal, Halo Infinite, and Titanfall 2.
So you admit that the games did adapt and did make a comeback. This shit writes itself at this point.
Arena shooters simply didn't adapt in a way that could attract a new audience, so they were left with their dwindling old boomers. They were too stubborn, adhering to the things that made them popular, like rocket jumping, and newcomers didn't feel compelled to master all the nuances of these games and their movement just to get 2 kills.
Holy shit, this guy might be genuinely fucking retarded. So he just said that arena shooters adapted and made a comeback because of their implementation of new mechanics, and in the very next sentence he reverts to his monkey brain and says that they magically didn't? Like, There is no other explanation. He is genuinely fucking brain damaged.
This is why we saw trends of offering rewards to bad players, with things like death streaks in Modern Warfare 2, ordnance drops in Halo 4, Titans in Titanfall. Everybody gets a Titan no matter how poorly you do. Developers realized that the casual audience shouldn't be neglected.
Yet you completely shat on these features in the past. But of course, flip-flopping yet again. Now they're suddenly good because they fit his narrative.
They introduced a lot of elements of randomness. Anyone can grab the Thanos glove in Fortnite and become a badass. Anyone can hit the Smash Ball in Smash Bros. And unleash a devastating attack.
Anyone can fire the BFG in Doom, what's your point?
Not to mention, if people were going to master a video game, they'd rather master aspects like positioning, aim, strategy, what weapons I go for. These aspects you see in games like Rainbow Six and Counter-Strike. The reason Call of Duty has never given up its extremely short time to kill is because that's what attracts the casual audience. This is one of the fundamental differences between modern shooters that are successful and why arena shooters have fallen out of favor.
That is completely subjective. As much as I enjoy learning all kinds of games, I would much rather learn how to move at the speed of light and hit cool shots, rather than learn behind which piece of cover to sit behind. Does that mean that more tactical shooters have fallen out of favor? Of course fucking not, it's a preference. Both have the right to exist, both have an appeal, both are successful, both are fun, both are profitable. That's all that matters, end of fucking discussion. Or at least I wish, but we still have 3 minutes of this brain cancer to go through.
So what happened to arena shooters? Gatekeeping happened. Quakers want you to follow jank written guides on how to perform basic movement because things like bunny hopping and rocket jumping aren't explained in the games, and never had intuitive control systems implemented that made those actions easier. Shooting at a blur darting across a CRT monitor with a ball mouse while compensating for 200 millisecond lag isn't very engaging for hours either. And by the time technology caught up with the genre, taste in multiplayer had long changed.
Once again, hiding the likes because you already know no one agreed with this retard. So I guess now player discovery in video games is bad. Does that mean that games like Ultrakill shouldn't exist because it doesn't tell you that you can parry your own shotgun? And it's even more retarded because Act Man has apparently been on record praising player discovery, so take that as you will.
In short, the movement of games like Quake are what made arena shooters great, but it's also what made it impossible to grow, because it was inaccessible to newcomers.
And he doesn't elaborate on exactly why yet again. I mean, by that logic, I guess I, as a newcomer, was unable to learn classic Doom and a lot of its gimmicks. Nope, sorry guys, it didn't happen. It couldn't have because the Act Man said so. Seriously, fuck right off with that bullshit logic.
By the time the Xbox One and PS4 generations launched, arena shooters had all but fallen out of memory, and any new attempts at reviving the genre hardly made a splash.
I already responded to this enough times, so I won't waste my breath.
The games felt outdated, primitive. Even when you look at Doom 2016, it looks like it's from the early 2000s.
Find me a game from the early 2000s that looks anywhere near Doom 2016. Also, graphics are not the only thing that matters when playing a video game, and you know this. But you're just so blinded by your never-ending hatred towards arena shooters that you cannot possibly think straight. And it's even more hypocritical because you shat on Quantum TV when he applied that same logic to Elden Ring.
And each new release that failed to garner a significant audience only made it harder for the next one to try. And at a certain point, they just stopped trying.
Do I even justify this bullshit with a response?
I hope you have enjoyed this trip back into history, examining the intricacies of the FPS genre and arena shooters. And I am kind of sad that they've fallen out of favor.
Apparently not, because this whole video was you completely lying through your teeth about them and blindly shitting on them at any given opportunity. So I guess this is a good point to end off. The rest is just him giving an outro and trying to pull an extra credits, pretending like he didn't just look for issues where there are none. So I guess the moral of the story is, we all have Stockholm Syndrome for playing arena shooters, or some shit. Well then, be sure to like and subscribe to boost me in the algorithm. Thank you for watching and I'll see you next time.